Hey everybody, we are excited to be back. This segment, we are going to be talking about who's the best team in the NFC. We have the Green Bay Packers, the Seattle Seahawks, Atlanta Falcons, and we have the Dallas Cowboys. Welcome everyone, we are Drew Code Sports Talk. I am your host, Andrew Wright. Over here to my right, your left, is my co-host, Cody Johnson. We're going to be talking about who's the best team in the NFC. We listed them off: the Packers, the Seahawks, the Cowboys, and the Falcons. That's kind of our opinion. I know maybe people want to look at the Panthers and say, hey, they're 2-0, but who are we kidding?
I mean, not a lot of competition there, but we'll go over that more with the team. So
Exactly. Who do you think is the best team in the NFC right now after week 2?
Right now, without a doubt, for me, it's the Atlanta Falcons. Their competition that they beat with the Packers. And you want to say the Bears are not really a competitive team, but I do think that the fact that they've got their defense still dominant from last year. You've got, is it pronounced Breesley?
Vic Beasley?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Beasley.
That guy has been tearing it up. 7 sacks on the year so far for the team out of 2 games. Incredible. Offense is super high power. They got more than just Jones. They got Sanu, Coleman, and they got Freeman. Best team by far. And they even muted Aaron Rodgers, the great Aaron Rodgers. The only yards he picked up was garbage time yards. So, when you hold Aaron Rodgers and the Packers like that, how can you not say they're the best NFC team?
You're right. I completely agree. Honestly, out of all these teams on this list that we listed, and going through the NFC teams like I was earlier, the Falcons are the only team on this list that I'm actually confident about saying that, yeah, they're a really good team.
Yeah.
I look at the Packers, like you said, with the game, and it just... The Packers were just completely shut down. It was such a dominant performance for that Falcons defense.
Yeah.
I kind of felt bad for Aaron Rodgers, and I usually don't, because our buddy Brad, he's a Bears fan.
Yeah.
So he hates Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So usually I'm always trying to mock him, but yeah, Aaron Rodgers, I felt really bad for him, and that's like the first time I've ever felt bad for him.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is, too, is the Packers just went against Seattle, who's also on our list as far as who's the best NFC team. And Seattle had a really grinder game with San Francisco for most of that game, which is really odd because you would think they would have just stomped them. Yeah. And Carolina played them week 1, and I wouldn't say demolished them, but didn't make it look competitive. Yeah. Then you got Seahawks coming in, and it was a defensive battle, but Seattle couldn't get any offense going, which has kind of been the same thing for the last 2 to 3 seasons. They have no sort of rhythm with their offense. I just think Jimmy Graham isn't really in there. Baldwin won't even show up until at least week 10. And then you got the Cowboys that got showed up by the Denver Broncos. So that tells us, is that team really as good as we think they are? Or is the Broncos defense that good? I think it's the fact that if you've got a strong defense that can stop the run and you've got to rely on passing options, I think that's the Achilles heels for the Cowboys.
Yeah. A lot of people that I've talked about, well, the Falcons, I think, are the best team. And people will say, well, they struggled against the Bears. Mike Glennon, we were talking about Mike Glennon being, looking actually, hey, he should be the starting quarterback.
Right.
Listen, it's week 1. Everyone's excited. Everyone has those excitements. Some guys have nerves, and that actually does play into the game.
Yeah.
I mean, for high school students, a homecoming game, that's always the one you get most energized about, or sometimes even your first game or the last game or championship game, whatever it may be.
Yeah. And
there are certain games in the NFL, even though you've done this for so long, you still get those types of games where you're just, I'm really excited about getting the season going. Right. So honestly, I look at the Falcons versus Bears performance as a non-factor to the Falcons, because the Bears came out, they wanted to prove that, hey, we're not that crappy of a team.
Right.
And they showed it that week. The second week, not so much.
Right.
But what you were talking about with the Cowboys, I wanted to get to. To me, the weakness of the Cowboys, it's not necessarily the offense couldn't get in a groove. It was more of the defense.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop a weak Broncos offense. I don't want to say weak because I'm mainly talking about Trevor Siemian. He still isn't. To me, he still isn't. Considered a starting quarterback in my eyes. But they do have C.J. Anderson, who's running well. Yeah. Emmanuel Sanders. Demaryius Thomas. They have a good offense.
Yeah.
They just don't have like a number one quarterback in my eyes. But you saw what the Cowboys defense couldn't do against a guy who, would probably be a backup any other team.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong, Simeon's got some arm talent, and I agree with you. I don't think he's the savior of the franchise. I'm not even expecting him to take over starting role for very long, because all it takes is just for one season, if you can get a high-priced quarterback off of free agent. Like, for example, if Kirk Cousins just walked away from the Redskins and said, hey, I'm on the open market, you don't think the Broncos would be knocking on his door and say, hey, you want to quarterback this team?
Yeah.
You don't think that they would kick Trevor Siemian off the team, or even Paxton Lynch for that matter, or Brock Osweiler?
Yeah.
You don't think that they would get rid of all three of those guys in a heartbeat to get Kirk Cousins signed right now? So that's what I think. But, they've got a good, sustainable offense, but they're starting to remind me of like a team that is 8-8, and depending on where the score goes, can either be 10-6, 7-9. It just depends. But their defense is so elite, though. With Von Miller still there, they got shutdown corners. If their defense carries them, it's the offense you got to worry about. Because they can throw the ball around. And this is just to counter the point of the Cowboys, because the Broncos as the team. But if they're going to throw the ball around, you got to just make sure that it's accurate. And is Simeon accurate enough to get there? Can he make the great throws? Anyways, kind of going off of away from the NFC, but back to the Cowboys though. I kind of am worried too about Ezekiel Elliott. He quit, it seemed like, visibly on this team, and I don't know if that's because of the distraction of what's going on with his domestic violence case going on, how he's feeling, how his case is going with the NFL, and how he's fighting to stay on the field. Basically, is that just because he came up against a weak defense and he basically just said, "Hey, I'm not playing today because this is too much for me." Like, is that going to happen again this season? Is that going to happen again? And that's kind of going to be a big problem because he's one of the cornerstones, right? So
yeah, I will say this. I'm going to give him a pass on this one, and to me, even for me, that's kind of surprising because I'm usually like, oh man, if this guy's going to give up, then when's the next time he's going to give up? Is it going to be a playoff game? But in my eyes, it kind of seemed like the way that the game was going, and I was able to watch a little bit of the game. Mm-hmm. It kind of seemed that like the way that the game was going. Sometimes I've seen it with teammates before of where just the way that the game's going, even though you could pump them up as much as they can, they're just like, no man, this isn't going well, and you're just like, come on man, we still have a chance, and they're just like, no, it's over. Sometimes a guy gets it in their head, but sometimes if it gets in their head, that can last for quite a while. Yeah. So. Is there cause for concern? Absolutely. If you're I was going to say Jerry Jones, but if you're Jason Garrett, mm-hmm. you're really concerned about your running back, and you're going to really focus on him this week and say, hey, we need you. You see what happened when we didn't have you.
And granted, too, he only had 9 carries, so is that really, did something happen between him and the coaching staff where they essentially disciplined him throughout the game? And I guess that's no worse for a player who's competitive like Ezekiel Elliott to only get 9 carries against a good team, and then all of a sudden now you're getting this flack about, oh, you can't handle tough defenses. Yeah. So, it just goes to show. But again, overall, Atlanta Falcons for sure number 1 team. Cowboys probably number 2, but I've got to see another couple of weeks of some positive wins right now.
Yeah, I would say, I agree. I'd say Falcons 1, Cowboys 2. The Packers have a bad offensive line and they're hurt right now, so that doesn't help. And Jordy Nelson wasn't in the game, so I'll give them that. But watching that game, I watched that whole game, mm-hmm. I didn't see any point in time where I'd be like, oh, Jordy Nelson would have made this game a lot closer. There was no point. It was just a complete domination by the Falcons.
And it was the same thing. Rodgers hiked the ball, take a 5-step drop, and then he'd be chased out of the pocket almost every time.
I'm not really thinking that the Seahawks are even that good, especially their offense. Their defense is keeping them alive. They're keeping them afloat. Yeah. If you're the defense, you are noticing this, and you're already going to get pissed off because that offensive line is probably top 5 worst in the league. Yeah. It is horrid.
It's awful. I mean, they've got so many running backs, they don't know who to hand the ball off to. You've got Doug Baldwin as your only really receiving threat. And I mean, you've got Richardson, but I don't think Richardson as a threat. I mean, he's that guy that's a streaky runner that runs down the field, throw him the ball as long as you can. But Russell Wilson isn't a throw it down the field kind of a quarterback. He they were real successful last year when they were using Graham a little bit more, when they were kind of getting him those intermediate passes. He's not even in the offense, it seems like. And it seems like the last 3 years are always in this whole offensive slump for at least the first 8 seasons. Then week 9, they kind of figure it out. Week 10, it gets better, but it's a little too late because they don't have anything that sustains. I mean, I imagine they'll still make it to the playoffs because they've got a super weak division, but I mean, how long can they really do this? In my opinion, they kind of need to blow up the offense. Start from scratch. If you're going to have Wilson and then go from there. And especially that offensive line. Do you really want Wilson chasing for his life? Look at what happened to Cam Newton. Got injured. He's not the same now.
Exactly. So. I agree. Like you said, with Russell Wilson, a lot of people are like, oh, is Russell Wilson really elite? This isn't Russell Wilson's fault.
No.
I mean, he has no time to throw.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, he can scramble, and so sometimes they do make plays.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, it seems like he's constantly scrambling out. And in that Falcons-Packers game, that's what it looked like with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And it was almost super surprising. And like I said, you felt really bad. There's 3 plays where Rodgers got blew up.
Yeah.
And he had to throw the ball real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm amazed that, that one that where he was trying to throw to the side, but he tried to throw it ahead. But it kind of looked like it went backwards.
Right.
I'm kind of surprised that they didn't, let that.
You know what?
Continue.
Just that whole defense just had him scrambling the whole time. And the only thing is that even if you had Russell Wilson do that, he's not nearly as arm talented as Rodgers. So Rodgers kind of gets away with it because on the run he can just dart it out to you, and he doesn't have to really put any great form because he's got such a killer arm. But not everyone is like that. Like Russell Wilson has a good arm, but he doesn't have the like the Rodgers arm, I guess you can say. So I mean, you got to just really be careful, but be wary, man. Defenses are on these mobile quarterbacks, and if you don't got a good O-line and reliable receivers, you're done.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. This is Drew Code Sports Talk. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow us on YouTube.